it comes back to the team's inconsistency. And, as I've noted, some teams, their inconsistency, it manifests in one game they're real good, next game they're real bad. For the Flyers, the inconsistency manifests itself in game. There will be periods, 2 periods where they're great, and then 1 period where they're bad, or 1 period they're bad and 2 periods where they're great, 10 minutes where they're great and 10 minutes where they're bad. The first period of this game, and really even into the first, I'd say like 10 minutes of the second, they were dominant. They probably should have been up 2 or 3 goals rather than just the one that they were. Then they start taking penalties. That was the mantra that we heard from the locker room, was that the game started changing when they started taking penalties. You have Rasmus Ristolainen takes a cross-checking penalty. Then you got Mishkov, which I did think that penalty was a little questionable because he kind of gets pushed into him. Then at the very least, you think there probably should be an even up call with the cross checks he was taking while he's on the ice. But still, he does crash into the goal. You probably have to be a little bit more careful there in terms of your route. Then Buffalo starts to crawl back in. Then you have those 2 goals at the end of the second. And it's like, I guess, it's frustrating because a truly mature team, and that was a point that Kem York made after the game in the locker room, that, maybe this 60-minute game issue is a maturity issue. And I think it was a pretty honest thing to be said by a player on the team that, yeah, maybe we need to be a little bit more mature. But I will cut them a little bit of a break in the sense that, you give up 2 goals at the end of a period that you've been dominating, and then you go into intermission suddenly down 3-2. I guess I understand why you'd maybe be a bit shell-shocked, because you're thinking to yourself, how could we possibly be losing this game? We've played so well for most of it. Doesn't excuse them. They need to do a better job of shaking it off quicker and not letting it bleed into the third period the way it did. Those first 10 minutes of third period were horrendous. They got outshot, I think it was like 7 or 8 to nothing to start the period. Like, that's ugly. But I guess I understand it to a degree, in that you feel like you're dominating and suddenly you're losing. It was a weird game because it wasn't all bad. They probably end up coming out ahead in most of the full game, 5-on-5 metrics or whatever. But you can't have what functionally was about a 15 to 18-minute stretch of the game where they were just playing like an AHL team. Like, you can't have that. I don't care who you are.
I'm glad you brought up that third period because you've educated me on a lot of things over the years, score effects being one of them. The Flyers were trailing in the third, and yet we're outshot 12-5. What the hell happened to your damn numbers that time, Chuck?
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. And that's the thing. And like, in their defense, they do come with a push late. And they could have tied that game. I was expecting an overtime game because, of course, they love to play overtime. When they get that last power play and then they pull Harrison to get the 6-on-4, I was expecting them to score because it was like, of course they're going to go to overtime. Obviously, I have a 6:30 flight, so yeah, they're definitely going to go to OT. But they did come back late. They have a push, but the first half of that third period, like, you should be the desperate team. You should be the team making the push. And instead, if you didn't have, if let's say NBC Sports Philadelphia's score bug just isn't working for that third period, and you're just plopped down, you hadn't watched the first 2 periods, and someone told you, yeah, one team's up 1 goal right now, you would guess that it was the Flyers who were up a goal and it was the Sabres who were trying to come back in those first 10 minutes of the third period, when in reality, the Sabres are the team protecting the lead and they're the team piling it on. That, I think, frustrated me even more than the 2 goals at the end of the second. Because, like, look, yeah, those are breakdowns. Those are bad plays. The first one, I think in particular, Sanheim really screws up. The second one, you need a save from Harrison. I'm sorry, you do. But to come out in the third and not go back to the way you were playing in the first, but let things get even worse, and then it takes you 10, 11, 12 minutes to stabilize yourself, like, that's what they need to resolve really quickly, because you're not going to win a lot of games if that becomes a thing that just continues over the rest of the year.
All right, couple of things you touched on. I wanted to get a little more on. You said Sanheim really screws up there. First, is that a result like these? This is one of the problems of lefty playing the right side. He's on his backhand there. Maybe if he's on his forehand, he can flip it ahead to Couturier. Also, I don't know. Couturier is a little far into the neutral zone there, Chuck. One might say he flew the zone a little early. Will his ice time be affected by this?
Well, Look, I saw that Twitter was losing its mind over this
Yes,
because Twitter
yes.
apparently has decided they hate Sean Couturier. Now, look, yeah, I guess he blows his own a little bit early, but to my eye, and I acknowledge that I have more respect for Sean Couturier than most of the people on Twitter seem to these days. But to my eyes, like the Flyers have possession. The Flyers have possession. That is a puck that is sent back around the boards. It obviously didn't work out, but I don't think it is unreasonable for a forward to think this is a good time to cheat into the neutral zone because we have the puck and we are going to be able to do a quick up ice. My rewatch of that play, and like, look, it looks bad, and Couturier probably could have busted his butt a little bit better getting back into the zone once it's clear that the Flyers have lost possession. But watching that play, I mean, I see four mistakes from Sanheim. The first mistake was probably the one that is the most subtle, but it's maybe the most important. Tippett gets the puck. He sends it. He reverses it back around the net, and York lets it go. Sanheim, instead of going to where the puck is, he hesitates just like a half second. He looks over his shoulder to see where the forechecker is, and because of that, he's not able to cut the puck off. He's got to chase it, which then gives the forechecker extra time to get on him, and that's why he's in a position where he can't put himself in a more comfortable place with the puck. He's got to do it with his backhand, which obviously he's not going to get as much power on it. Then he doesn't get much power on it, doesn't get it out. It turns into a turnover. And then he gets burnt twice. Like he gets burnt first by Dahlin with that nice, backhand pass. It was like a no look backhand pass. Then he recovers to a degree, gets set up on Thompson, and then lets Thompson dance him. So, like, look, Travis Sanheim's a really good defenseman. And I enjoy watching him play. I don't think this means he's trash. I don't think it means he's bad. But I think on that sequence in particular, I think he's way more to blame than Couturier is because while it was a decision that looks bad. I don't think it was a crazy decision for him to blow the zone on that play because it does look like, to his eyes, that the Flyers have possession and they are going to be able to do a quick up breakout.
But ultimately, I blame Sanheim on that.
That blind backhand pass is just not something that you want to see out there. Well, look, I think the problem is offense at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And you got to go get an experienced center, a guy who knows how to score goals in this league. Somebody like, I don't know, Steven Stamkos?
Oh, Charlie,
Yeah,
is it true? Could we be
no,
getting superstar Steven
no.
Stamkos?
Why are we this bored that
Yes.
we are believing that Eklund and Hockey Insider are like reputable sources? Come on, people.
Yes. Yes, we are this board. That game was very, very upsetting, and I choose to turn post game into a bit tonight. How were the
Yeah.
wings?
My fault. How is the
Oh,
ambiance and decor?
the wings I got last night were fantastic. We went to Gabriel's Gate, which is like apparently like one of the go-to wing places. It's like a not a dive bar, but it's a nice bar in Buffalo. I got these like combo Cajun and medium wings. They were fantastic. Great stuff.
I guess if I ever find myself in Buffalo, I will have to go as well, Chuck.
Next road trip.
How much blame do you put on Sam Ersson? I thought that third goal, especially, like, come on, bro, what are you doing? Other than that, a lot of breakdowns and weird things that led to the goals, but ultimately, like, that's the go-ahead goal. How much do you put on Ersson as opposed to everyone else?
Yeah, it's that third goal that I hate. I didn't, some people criticize him for the second goal. Like, okay, he got off his spot a little bit, but also it's Tate friggin' Thompson. Like, the guy scored 40 plus goals for a reason. He's got a really good shot and he's really good in that area. I'm not going to kill him for that one. The third goal, though, like, you watch it and I get the feeling of like, well, there's a lot of traffic, there's screens in front, and there are a lot of guys in front. My issue with it is, and I'm gonna maybe it's unfair to Harrison, but I'm gonna compare him to Vladar. Dan Vladar has done such a good job this year of finding his way and navigating through screens, navigating through traffic. It helps that he's a little bit taller, but he's also just placed an emphasis upon it. He really worked hard this offseason improving in that area and trying to figure out better ways, more efficient ways to see through a screen without putting himself out of position. Watching that play on replay, Sam Ersson very clearly looks over to his right side, trying to see that puck, trying to see through a screen. And where does the puck go? It goes exactly where he would have been if he wasn't looking over to the right side to try to see through a screen. It's not even that dangerous of a shot. Like, we're not even talking about like a howitzer or a monster slap shot. Like, it is a nothing shot. And that's the kind of shot where and look, I'm not a goalie expert. Maybe I'm wrong. But to me, that's the kind of shot where all you have to do as a goalie, you don't even have to see it. You just have to be in the right spot. And he wasn't in the right spot because he's trying to look through a screen. I just think that he just needs to get better at that. Like he needs to get to where Vladar has gotten to, where Vladar is just like, look, it's not luck that Vladar doesn't give up many of those types of goals. It's that he's better at seeing through screens than Sam Ersson is, and that's why he doesn't give up those kind of goals where you're like, well, he was screened. Like, now Vladar finds a way. Ersson on that play needed to find a way, especially given the timing. It's tied, and then you go into intermission down 3-2, and now the whole team's shell-shocked. Like, how could we be tied? The timing was awful. I think the second goal is really the momentum changer, but maybe you're okay if you go into intermission down, like with the score tied 2-2, then you can be like, look, we've dominated, 35 of the 40 minutes of this game, whatever. We'll go out and blow their doors off in the third. Instead, you're down, and it's like, how could this be possible? And then you flop for the first 10 minutes of the third. If Ersson finds a way to make that save, I think there's a better than 50% chance the Flyers win this game, even in regulation. Instead, they're chasing, and not only were they chasing on the ice, they were chasing, I think, in their heads. They just lost it a little bit, and that Ersson goal he allows, that mistake he made, that's a big reason why.
Now, to talk about one positive thing, Travis Konechny almost, he brings the Flyers back within a goal.
He scored against the goalie.
He scored against the goalie, ends up with 4 shots in the night. Hell of a shift on that goal. What did you think about TK there?
Yeah, I mean, that shift was great. I thought that line in general, the Dvorak, Zegras, Konechny line, I thought that was their best line of the night, especially in the first period. They were ever. Dvorak made a lot of plays, especially in the first half of the game. Really good plays with the puck, had a lot of scoring chances. So it didn't shock me that that line had that kind of shift, but that was a really important shift. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be remembered now because they ultimately lose the game in regulation, but that was a momentum halting shift. That's a shift where, that is the team's most effective line on the night being like, nah, we're not just going to go quietly. We're going to find a way to make this interesting. All 3 of them were good. The defensemen were good. It was a good 5-man unit cycle. You had Konechny winning a battle. He's not a big guy, and he's shielding a much bigger guy below the goal line to protect the puck. You had Dvorak making plays. You had Zegras making plays. Like, that's just a good all-around shift. It was nice to see Konechny get rewarded. It was nice to see him, like, beat a goalie clean. I know you're going to say, like, well, it's just funny that it's a goalie. But at his peak, when he's playing his best, he is a guy who can beat goalies clean. He has the ability to snipe pucks. We just haven't seen it for, like, 11 and a half months now. I still think it's in there. And that was maybe a reminder that, like, hopefully he can find it at some point over the second half of the season.